Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to the PWTorch flagship edition of the Fireside Chat here on the PWTorch YouTube channel. It is Friday, May 19th, 2023. What's going on? I'm PWTorch assistant editor Zach Haydorn, Tyler Sage. Hello, hello.
Hello, we're back. We're better than ever. Missed last week because of me. So, we're held to accountability on this show. And I know the channel has had a little less content recently, but Zach and I are both but we're working a lot in our not fun job and have to be not in these current locations for a portion of the week, which is hard to get content up that way. So we're figuring it out. But good. Azan said I had good energy. Maybe is that right now or is that last night? I tried or on Wednesday night. I tried to give you that energy that you asked for. So also a lot of good questions, a lot of good chat to talk about and everything. So yes. Very, very excited to be here nonetheless. Sorry, Zach, I took all your...
No, go. I'm excited to be here too. Yeah, we've had a little bit of a couple curveballs from a scheduling perspective. So thanks for everybody sticking with us. And, I don't know. On my end, it's return to office and all this other craziness. But look, we're here and we'll continue to be here. If you haven't hit subscribe, please do so. We'd very much appreciate that. We're live a lot of days during the week. Keep it locked here. Hit the notification button. Tell a friend. We will continue to bring exclusive content, PWTorch style, right here on the PWTorch YouTube channel. So everybody who joined us in the chat right now, Tracy, hello, happy Friday. And Milano's in there. Dr. Ross is there. Azan, of course. Zach, what's going on? It has been a minute. So thanks very much for joining us, everybody. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, jeez.
I feel like if there's ever a time to bring that out, it's probably today. Because I think a lot of people are joining the show, hopefully ready to talk about CM Punk, because we have not been able to really address the situation here. Part of the good thing about this show being on Fridays now is we kind of have a full week of news to digest into. And, for better or worse, CM Punk is at the top of that list. And what's happened between him and AEW is, to me, it's like, if you know CM Punk and you know what happened and you've watched like his time in wrestling and just his time dealing with people on this earth, like this whole kind of AEW Collision announcement falling through, you had to see it coming. I mean, you had to at least put it on the horizon of like, okay, it's possible. Would I have bet my money that Ace Steel would have been at the center of it? No, but it's always something. And so, it's the thing with him is that not only did he ruin like a big night for AEW back in September, but this is a big night, not just for AEW, but this is like real world, people that are a lot more important than CM Punk, like making money and making big announcements, advertisers, partners, different corporate sponsors. I mean, they have a stake in this AEW Collision announcement. And you had, Tony Khan not able to kind of control that situation. It may be a situation that's not controllable anymore, in which case I think you need to make a decision on that. But Tyler, I mean, you kind of had a chance to talk about this on the post show with Wade on Wednesday night, but now that it has a few more days to marinate with you, I mean, this is almost worst case scenario on what was supposed to be one of the bigger days in the company's history.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I would like to point to the chat, especially if you're not watching live. If you're watching this, just not live, but the chat around 4:06 p.m., 4:09 p.m. that range, if it accumulates in that way. But remember the day after All Out, and me and you hopped on here.
Yep.
On a midday talking about the brawl out and all that stuff. And, you correct me if you think I'm incorrect here, but I feel like our audience was pretty split into camps of pro elite, pro punk based on the little bit of news that was out.
Yep.
And was looking at our chat now of people who were solely team punk and thought that the elite were, and I'm not saying anyone's wrong because I was on the other side of that mostly, but like for everyone on this chat to be like, so far, if you feel different, please add it. But like, this guy's not worth it. I'm so over. I'm done talking about him. That's how I felt on Wednesday. For anyone that has listened to the show, I was like exhausted talking about him. He's great for content. He's great. You put CM Punk as the first word, YouTube is going to feed our channel to anyone that's watched a wrestling video in the last year. For me and you. But it's just like the total favor from outside my opinion, your opinion. Like I haven't seen anybody online who's been like, even trying to defend this guy at this point. And on Wednesday on the post show, I would encourage anyone to go back and listen to that full show because I think Wade had a lot of good tidbits in there as well. And those shows are really good for if you have like a focus on AEW that Wade does on the VIP side. There's stuff in there, but just like casual conversation, things can slip of who he's talked to, not slip, but he has a lot of insight. He's mum on some things, he's not. I think there's a lot of good information in that. But my thought, and I'm curious what you think, Zach, and then we'll kind of get into a larger debate here, was that this whole Ace Steel thing at the 11th hour, to me, feels like a poison pill of sorts. And CM Punk, to me, my opinion, and feel free, my username's right there. If Phil is watching this, which I assume he is because he's a thin-skinned guy who watches everything. Of course. I very much encourage him to post this on IG and say, not me, because I could really use the words. So I'm open for it. I would honor it, and I would thank him for that. So, but anyway, it to me feels like a guy who doesn't want to work. He wants to get a buyout, and he's just doing everything he can to be as difficult as possible for Tony Khan to be like, enough is enough. And, you got 3 years and X number. You want to, if I owe you $6 million, here's 4 to walk away and leave me alone. And you're a free agent, whatever. That's what this feels like to me. And, will we see him? I don't know. I think we'll talk about that long term, but like, is this guy with AEW a year from now? I think that is plus 10,000 odds. Like it's like Danhausen winning the AEW world title. If you were to take it like a kayfabe wrestling odds, like this guy being around long term, just to me at this point, and you can clip this, please. I'd love to be incorrect, and he's doing good stuff for the company, etc. But like, it just doesn't seem like it's tenable in any way, shape, or form. Like, can you imagine working with this guy? If all this stuff's happening, yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, it's well, first of all, as far as Ace Steel goes, like, and this poison pill thing, like, I'm of the camp where it's like in either direction, either way, like Ace Steel should really not be a sticking point to like a deal here. Like, either side should probably just be adults about it. And it's like, all right, if Tony Khan is like, all right, like, look, we're already bringing CM Punk back. Like, we've already made that decision. So if I've lost the respect of some of the locker room because of that, like, that's already happened. That's happening. Mm-hmm. So like, adding Ace Steel to the mix really shouldn't be like this big, huge thing. And the same thing on the other side, where it's like, okay, if you're Punk, it's okay. Tony Khan's made some concessions. I'm getting my own freaking show. Like, all right, I'll just throw Ace Steel some cash on the side and let it go away. So poison pill, yes, I think it sounds that way. I think if you're Tony Khan, though, you could also just say, hey, look, like, whatever. He wants him back, fine. Like, whatever. We already played like the Ace card, which is Punk coming back. I don't think Ace Steel shouldn't have that type of impact on your locker room. It's Ace Steel. I mean, like, come on here, folks. Like, this is not it don't make this guy bigger than it is. But the long-term potential is like what I'm talking about here too. It's like you have, like, you're putting up with a whole lot. And I think, look, the business metrics are there to make the argument that, yeah, you want to have CM Punk back in a perfect world if you can make it happen. There's whatever merch sales, he sells out big buildings, ratings are up when he's on television. I mean, like, a lot of business metrics point to him being a positive for the company. But the thing is, the circumstances right now are way different than they were when he debuted for the company in 2021. Way different. Who does he work with? Like him, I'm sorry. Like I'd like to see CM Punk versus Powerhouse Hobbs, but that's not the match that people want to pay to see. I mean, you want to see him against the big stars in the company. You want to see him against Kenny Omega. You want to see him against the Young Bucks. You want to see him against Jon Moxley again, perhaps. You want to see him against MJF, against Jay White, like Adam Cole. Like there's, and if none of those, if you're not going to be able to do that, and all you're going to be able to do is kind of tuck him away on Collision and have him do little feuds with Powerhouse Hobbs, like that's, I don't think you're going to get the bang for your buck out of him. Not even close. Because I mean, look, but when he came back, it was, wow, we've got all these people that he can work with, these big time acts. And I just don't. If you bring him back and he's not going to work with those guys, and he's not going to be in the title picture, and he's going to be in his own Codyverse type thing, that didn't work. That didn't do anything for AEW. So you got to wonder, like, okay, you have him back, but what's the impact going to be if he can't do anything with anybody of any sort of substance?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's even like the optimistic view of the situation.
Right.
Is that
right.
like, A, he's not going to get hurt. B, he's going to be able to show up and not, be a malcontent every step of the way. So at best case scenario, the current plan is, him to, be maybe trios champions with FTR at some point. Like, is that like the level you want him to be if he's not going to go against an Adam Cole who's champion at the time, or MJF who's still champion, or, the big match at All In that you would like to happen there. So, that's the optimistic side. The pessimistic side is where I am, is that I don't think he's lasting long if he does come back at all. So, it's, and as more people popped in, Sean popped in and said the same thing, like, not worth the trouble, et cetera. And like, we're the type of people that are watching Dynamite every week, watching all the WWE stuff every week. Like, if Collision's going to do 800,000 to start and then drop down to 500,000 or so is kind of my rough estimate of that show. Like, CM Punk being there, not being there, I think if he's there, it pops the rating. But long term, it's just not something I think that is impacting the business anymore, unless you can use CM Punk in the correct way, which is have a feud with someone who can talk, who is having similar points to you, that you and I are having right now, where someone's like, hey, Punk, I'm saying some things, don't post on Instagram about me. Like, that's the meta stuff that like you kind of need to do at this point, where Punk's a heel and you're a babyface who's like digging him, and the audience is like, oh, I can't believe he said that. That's like the amount of stuff you need. A super heel Punk who is going to get down in the muck and involve, not with everybody. Powerhouse Hobbs doesn't really make sense to do that, whatever. But you have a big time feud. Right. You have Jay White maybe, who's on like a winning streak, and he's going to talk about all the stuff about. Just none of that's going to happen. So what you're laying out is the best case scenario, a Samoa Joe match, which will be great, but it was obviously better 20 years ago from an in-ring standpoint. And, we're just going to continue to talk about him above the show, above the characters, above what's happening. And, was that good? It's been now officially a year, basically, that the overall conversation with AEW is this sort of thing, right? Starting with MJF at Double or Nothing last year, going through all the CM Punk stuff in different iterations there, Andrade, Miro, Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker, Collision being the island of misfit wrestlers who can't get along with Tony's chosen wrestlers on Dynamite is not a good meta conversation to have. And all that being said, I've liked a vast majority of AEW content for those, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. where I get the, with the product they want me to see. I think it's been really good. And, if you just looked at that in a vacuum, kids today, let's say I'm 14 today, and in 30 years, like, hell yeah, I'm going to be like rewatching AEW right. Dynamite. Like, I was rewatching Nitro without knowing any of the crap going on backstage. But like, that is how, the meta narrative is not good. And I've kind of changed my opinion on this being like the end of the world, and the deal I think certainly helps and whatever. So I'm going off the rails here, but just not worth it, right? I think everyone's pretty much correct. Is that like if you have someone like this at work, do you want to work with them? Do you want to hire them? No matter how many sales they bring in for you, but they're doing something not right, is it worth it? Probably not, right? So
yeah, and it's well said, and I think what I find so, I don't want to say ironic, but it's kind of predictable, and I think this has to do with like I put this in two different buckets. Like, okay, if he comes back, fans when he came back the first time, it was like, okay, like now we can see the CM Punk that we always wanted to see. The guy who's not bound by WWE, the guy who's going to be featured and pushed and be like the guy for a company, and we've wanted that for so long, and he deserved it and all that. And I think it's like I think it's going to be a hard dose of reality for him, because I think it's a hard dose of reality to fans where it's like, now, yes, WWE had its problems, of course, right? But if there was any hint of this, like if this was his attitude and this was how he operated, like in WWE, like it's like you look back and you're like, well, it's no wonder that he didn't get the opportunities that other people got, or that he wasn't positioned as the tip top guy, because this is how he conducted himself. And I think it's one thing, and I said this back when it happened in September, where it's like, it's one thing to kind of hear the stories of him acting that way, and then there's another thing to see it on television, on YouTube, or wherever it was, with Tony Khan sitting right next to him. I think that forever changed the perception of him as far as wrestling fans go. And like you mentioned, like even you look at our chat here, like there's nobody has chimed in with, hey, yeah, I can't wait to see him back. Like I think people are all interested to see how it's going to go, but like I think the grown up in all of us can look at this and go, no, like this isn't a good situation. It's not an adult situation. It's not a mature situation. It's just petty nonsense. And like when you put Ace Steel at the front of your like charge, it's like, what God's name are we doing here? Like, so I just find it ironic. Like the guy finally gets what he wants, to be at the top of a company. He's got a show made all for him, and he's still not able to get over, these little minute things that just don't matter in the bigger scheme of what Tony Khan and AEW's trying to do. So it's pretty impressive to watch him like blow up this bridge while he's still standing on it, which I think he famously said in a documentary back in the day.
Yeah. And like, not to like fantasy book the WWE aspect of it. Obviously, Vince McMahon makes a big difference in that. I think
yes,
you'd be likely to go there in last 6 months, whatever it's going to be, or be a spot guy. But even then, that's more of a oddity, or oh my god, what's he going to say when he's over there about whatever, right? But that has a shelf life too.
Yeah,
and it's like the pipe bomb promo is great, and that's what got like fans to see CM Punk as like a big time guy. But there's also like a 4.5 year run after that point where Punk is having some of the best stuff in WWE, and that is like forgotten, I think, even by him. Of like, you could have a big moment, but like the consistency of what that character was versus what was going on at the time is why people loved him, on top of being a good talker. So it's just to blow it up, and I don't know. I mean, not to psychoanalyze anybody. I think Tracy said that'd be a good case study for somebody, but I think certainly there's some reason for it. So yeah, it's just it's unfortunate in that we keep talking about it, etc. It's just like we moved from Cody to CM Punk.
Yeah.
So
do you think like when you look at this though, and I maintain that I don't think Ace Steel is going to hold up any sort of collision deal, but So let's say he's able to come back. I mean, what to you, like, what does that look like as far as him being on the show on Saturday nights? It's a weird time, you know. He's going to be tasked with the responsibility of carrying that load. When you look at who was revealed on that show, you know, or just who they put like the juice behind in terms of the press release, Powerhouse Hobbs, FTRs on the graphic, and Thunder Rosa and others. I mean, it's not a who's who of AEW. I mean, like, all the other big stars are not listed. I mean, like Adam Cole, Jay White, Chris Jericho. You know, like, they didn't lead with that. They didn't lead with their biggest stars in this announcement. I mean, how do you make that show work in an environment like that? Like, I think it's quickly, if CM Punk's not on the show, it's like that thing is instantly in trouble because of the perception that it will have if it doesn't have like the top guys or some top guys. John Moxley's not there. Bryan Danielson's not there. Like, I don't know what you do. I don't know how you program that show if CM Punk's not there. And I don't know how you program it really if he is there, because as I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of people for him to work with that I think is going to command, you know, 800,000 live viewers on a Saturday night. I just don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's already a problem even with CM Punk without any of this kind of new dust up to maintain viewership. And when a base of your roster, you know, let's say CM Punk is on the show, at most you got 15 minutes out of a 2-hour block that he's filling in. Maybe, you know, you do a WWE style where he's opening and closing the show, but you still have an hour and a half then to cover. And to set up your entire show of people that have fallen out with you and your company at some point as like, hey, here's a bunch of fresh new people that are not over in the slightest, and we want you to kind of all reset at the same time on the show and start from square one. You know, it'll probably work for most of them. I think Miro, I think Thunder Rosa will probably do pretty well. Andrade, I'm not sure how that'll go. You know, I think him and Sammy both were lost a lot in that situation there. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, I think ideally at this point you book it like SmackDown in 1999, and you just kind of work your best people on both shows to get both established. And whether that means like you treat it like what Rampage should be, where you have something happen that's not like a pre-tape, and that leads to a match on the next show. You know, you have the run-in tonight, not, you know, last night or on Wednesday night, and, you know, not saying this exactly, but you have the run-in and you have the Elite and Beast have a match then on Saturday. Not to that level, but you have stuff like that to like actually be cohesive units of storytelling, and then you can kind of eventually break apart when you've established both shows as being totally necessary. And as a viewer, I don't look at it as Rampage's Dark Elevation and Ring of Honor's is Dark, and then this is like Rampage and Dynamite's Dynamite, or vice versa, right? So yeah, that's what I need to see as a viewer to know. It's not really even about the roster, which is not helpful here. But if you had the Bucks, if you had everybody, you know, who's the most over person in the company right now? Orange Cassidy?
I'd argue Orange Cassidy, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, if it's Darby, Orange Cassidy, and the Acclaim 6 months ago, and that was on the show, I think you'd still have a lot of the same problems of this. So,
I know that there's a lot of like sentiment out there of, hey, the roster's huge, they can accommodate this brand split, and man, like, it's a big roster from like there's a lot of bodies there. You know, there's a lot of names on a list. But you talk about like splitting the brands, like, I mean, you don't have like the top tier guy, enough true top tier guys to accommodate in my opinion. Like, you really don't. I mean, MJF I think is one. You could like build a show around him. I think you could, the Elite in some ways I think are like collectively perhaps, but I don't think anybody as a standalone, you know, you could really run with. Maybe Adam Page. John Moxley, yes. And then after that, like it really kind of falls off a cliff. Like I don't think of Darby Allin. I don't think of, even Orange Cassidy at this point. I don't think like Ricky Starks. Like they're all very good wrestlers, and they're all close. They're close to kind of being those guys, but they're not there yet. Like they're not guys who have turned the corner in terms of star power like MJF has. So I think you're talking about a list of maybe 6 guys that and then the women's division, I don't know that anybody could, Britt Baker maybe, but it's just you've got 6 or 7 acts that could probably like carry a show. But once you split that up, most of them have already all worked together. We've already seen a lot of them interact. So what do you do? And so it's like you almost have to go that route that you're talking about if in this scenario. And we don't know what the situation will be like. Reports earlier in the week indicated that the talent were expecting a kind of like a hard and fast brand split. But you got to think now that if CM Punk's involvement is up in the air, the whole kind of strategy for this is up in the air too. But I just don't know. Like, do you buy the premise that the roster is big enough for 2 shows like this? Like, I just don't. I'm not in on that at this point, just because of how many people are stuck in that mid-level, mid-card range.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree completely. The roster's big enough, but yeah, you don't have enough people. You need like six top-level stars to carry each show. Do you have 12 top-level stars? No, you do not. Does WWE? Yes, but that's because they have literally 18 people that work between all 5 hours of big-time content. So you're forced to believe that Damian Priest is equal to or more of a star than, I mean, almost anyone on the AEW roster, just from working with Bad Bunny, right? So that's the skills that WWE has versus AEW. So if this was somewhat in the works, you would hope to plan for that. You could argue Sammy, Jack Perry, Darby have been elevated from this feud. I think probably Darby has, in my mind, but the other two are probably flat. So that's just like one example of like they've had a lot of time focused on characters, but in the end, are they that? It's like a sports team, right? We got NBA and NHL playoffs right now. AEW feels to me like a basketball team with maybe one superstar and a bunch of good role players, but they're not 3 superstars and a bunch of guys that are coming through. As my dogs are just going insane. Sorry about that. They're about to eat, so they'll be good.
Hey, they gotta eat. They gotta eat. Feed those dogs. No, I mean, I think I agree. Like, yeah, I just it's a situation because I don't know, like, I don't know how you can sit there in Tony Khan's shoes and say like, okay, here let's just say that this deal is going to be $1 billion and you have to put on another 2 hours worth of television. I know that like all indications and past history tell you not to say yes. But you're gonna say yes. I mean, it's $1 billion. Like you're not turning that down. So you have to figure out a way to make it work. And we just have not seen. I don't fault him for taking that dough because it's a business. It's a professional wrestling business. It's a business. It's there to make money, and so you make it when you can. But you got to figure out a way to like account for both of your shows and make sure that they're cohesive. Make sure that you're building stars for both. Make sure that the stars that you have can work with one another. And it's just like, to me, and to kind of bring this back to CM Punk, it's like, to me, it's like, all right, wow, you have 2 shows. It's like, this thing should be about like, CM Punk feuding with the top guys on your show, like not the Powerhouse Hobbs of the world. Like somebody has, like Tony Khan's got to come in and go, look, we got 2 shows now, guys. We need to be making smart choices. Our characters need to be, buttoned up. They need to be feuding with top people. So sorry, Bryan Danielson. No, you don't get to go around and just play a heel because you want to. You're one of the most lovable baby faces in the history of the business. Like, you're going to be a baby face and you're going to feud with the heels. Like, sorry, Kenny Omega. Nope, you don't get to like goof around, and play basketball backstage with the elite and mess around with Brandon Cutler. Like, nope. Like, I need best bout machine Kenny Omega. And it's like, instead of going into this 2-show thing with that on the table, I feel like all these top guys are kind of tucked away in their own areas. And it's like, we're gonna have all these shows and none of the top people are going to be wrestling each other on them. And it's like that. I mean, nobody's asking for more AEW content, but if you're going to give it to them begrudgingly, like, you should be putting the best out there. I just don't know that this show is going to feature that. They just don't have that capability right now, it seems. And I don't know. I mean, again, I think you take the money, but man, it's a risk. I mean, it's a risk.
Yeah. I mean, on that broader point, I've kind of changed my thinking on this. Anyone that saw my AEW talk on Wednesday would know that. But, to be honest with you, that Triple H liking that one tweet that was like in reply to Jericho of saying like, ratings don't matter as much in modern content, and getting like a multi-year deal with a TV partner and getting a second show is like good business sense. But yeah, creatively, it's not good at best, to more problematic than that. But business-wise, like this does commit AEW basically is surviving, is going to be on TV for another 5 years, which I think I appreciate as a fan and as someone that covers the hobby. So that's good. But yeah, I mean, do I want to see Butcher and the Blade main eventing like 3 collisions in a row in August? Probably not, but that's kind of where we're going to be. There's going to be people that Tony Khan relies on for a couple weeks on end, as we've seen with Dynamites and Rampages, etc. So, is that the best use of 5 hours of content now? Equal footing with, you can, major WWE to me is not NXT, but, now that they're even, like, it's really the comparisons can be made of, like, the storytelling between both companies and how much better WWE does it from, like, a 5-hour every week. The content feels, while not always perfect, there's a couple of big stories going in a good direction every night that you can hang your hat on. In AEW is good matches, but that's not going to last 3 hours of content week in and week out.
Yeah. If you're Tony Khan, like, do you just say like, look, we got like the second show pretty much without CM Punk, like, just forget this, like just to round out. I meant to ask you this before. We were like heavy in CM Punk, but I want to like just hear your take on this, and everybody in the chat can drop their opinion in there too. I mean, are you just cutting bait at this point with him and just buy out, take him to court, like whatever, like, or are you putting him on TV? I mean, where are you at on what he can bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I was out on him the day after Brawl Out happened, with just the way he was, talking there. And like, as someone who's, I think maybe most of us, I don't know, have to manage people in some capacity at our professions, not being the owner of the company, but being, just like there's certain things that's like, you cannot, you lose all respect as someone who manages people if someone's allowed to do that and others are not, right? You got to treat everyone as fairly as possible. I know it's wrestling, so it's not really the case, but that was, I think, a bridge too far right then and there. You knew he was going to be gone for 10 months anyway, probably. I'm sure it was known that he was injured. But, yeah, I'd be out on him. And if you're Tony Khan, if I were him, I would probably spin this in tears of how I knew CM Punk was really not going to come back, but I leveraged my having him as an asset to get a new TV deal that made me $1 billion. Like, that's how I would spin it in my biography. So look out for that coming in the near future, so you can be a business genius. But yeah, for me personally, it's not worth it. I'm out. I don't think it's good long term. I don't think anyone's going to be elevated. Darby, was he elevated with this match with Punk? Maybe, maybe not. Was MJF? maybe, maybe not. I think both of them are kind of at the same level when they did do that. So, it's good for them, but I don't think he is, ushering in the next generation of stars. He, at this point, is back. He feels like Hollywood Hogan 1999 to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think I'm changing my tune a little bit on this because I was certainly more open to to a return just for the sake of business. Like, just do the big matches. You do it. That's what you do in pro wrestling. People have dust ups all the time, and that's what you do. But it's abundantly clear at this point, guys. I think that he doesn't operate that way. I don't know that he has an interest in making amends or trying to make things work for business. He just hasn't shown that. And I think you mess up one of the biggest days in the company's history, and man, that says something. I mean, I really think that's to me that it does. Like, that's like the straw that broke the camel's back in my opinion. Like, I went into it for a long time just being like, no, you just got to get him back, and you just got to get him active. You got to get him back in the ring, and all will be well. And then yesterday happens, and this like petty stuff is able to derail like the announcement of a major TV product on one of the biggest television networks in the country. And it's like, to me, that's where I just go, you know what, Punk, you're not coming back, and we're not going to pay you a dime either. So if you want to sue us, go ahead. And I'm Tony Khan, and like, I got a lot more money than you do. So if you want to go ahead and do that, like, go right ahead. And I think I just draw the line in the sand right there.
Yeah, Punk's already lost litigation with a major wrestling company. So does he want to spend the money he's got left, or someone else? Well, never mind. I'm not going to say it. Never mind. But
I think he won that lawsuit, didn't he?
No, I don't. Well, someone Azan is our resident checker. I believe him.
Yes.
And Colt.
I thought that he did win on that. I thought he won on that one. Yeah, I could be wrong.
My thought is no, and then there was legal fees, and that was the issue between him and Colt.
Oh, maybe.
But anyway, he won. Okay, I'm wrong. So there you go. So never mind. Maybe he will be litigious. I trust Azan like no other. More than you, apparently. I didn't believe you. So
I don't think he's whatever. I don't know the legalities of all this, but I know that Tony Khan has a lot of money, and I just think that it's time to say goodbye. Peace out. I'm not cutting any checks though. That's for sure. Yeah, it's what a weird, like, dude. Okay, we're like almost 2 years out from CM Punk coming back, and like, what a weird, like, it's just, in some ways it went exactly like you'd think it would, and then in other ways, if you and Wade were talking about this on Wednesday, in other ways, if you're Tony Khan and you're like, this is what's going to happen when you get CM Punk to come out of retirement, join your company, have this wonderful return and a couple really good feuds, but then this is going to happen. It's like, it's almost, you wouldn't believe it if someone told you that, because this is as bad as, like, I think you could really imagine it. Like, I would not have had Derail's $1 million television deal on the bingo card of CM Punk. Like, just wouldn't have had that.
I mean, it for another sports analogy, it reminds me of Michael Jordan playing for the Wizards. Is kind of what this feels like with CM Punk. Not that it ruined Jordan's legacy, but it's like a weird outlier. Or like Karl Malone on the Lakers, or there's a million options, right? It's Aaron Rodgers on the Jets. If there's any Jets fans, I'm sure that would not be good this year. Also, the last thing on sports for me, your team, Punk's team, are the same in hockey. And you got the greatest prospect of all time. He should be more happy.
He should be more happy. Yes.
You were my team that was horrible all year and never gets anything, and now we got a guy. We're going to draft a guy named Will Smith. So there we go.
Well, I don't know how we lucked into that. I mean, I guess we had the second highest chance to get that pick.
Yeah, the Jackets had this heck. Hey, I mean, your team deserved it. There's lots of sexual abuse on that team, so good. Happy. guys. Anyway, it's not a hockey podcast.
No, it's fine. So how about like the show this week? For AEW. I mean, I didn't do great from a ratings perspective. Obviously, it's up against big time competition, of course. But I love the end. I thought the angle at the end of the show was one of the better things that AEW has done in this year. In quite some time. When you take out just really good matches, they put on really good matches all the time. But when you talk about angles and storylines and and the like, what they did on Wednesday with the Elite kind of coming together, eye patch Adam Page, like that's great. I thought that they kind of took that feud for me from something that was like, all right, they're gonna do Anarchy in the Arena and blah blah blah, and now it feels like something like, okay, like this is significant, like this matters, it's important. And I think a lot of it has to do with that angle specifically.
Yeah, I mean, the end of that show, I think, is fulfilled the promise of what I thought AEW could be as like a major North American wrestling company with a lot of stars that I've liked for a long time. Like everyone in that match, I've followed either in WWE, and Don's right there with that comment. But
good stuff. Good stuff here.
In the guys in the Indies who were like colliding and having this epic battle of, not for indie love versus WWE love, but that's what it feels like a little bit. Obviously, Yuta being different there for that. But yeah, I mean, it's a promise of, hey, here are, I don't know, 7.5 huge stars for our company, all battling it out, or 6.5. Claudio Wheeler, I would say.
Yeah, 50.
Anyway, but if that's like, this has been on the table in lots of different capacities for AEW, and they've had dream matches, but they've never had even a moment close to this from a storytelling perspective that's built over time. It reveals someone coming back, a change of character, the long arc of them being broken apart for the majority of AEW to now coming back together for a sole purpose and all being baby faces again. Like that journey, that story, you don't need to fill in the blanks. If you've never watched AEW, that worked on Wednesday. If you watched the whole time and before that, it also worked. And that's not to say that's all I'm asking for. Seems like kind of a snide remark, but like there's things you can do that work if you've never watched the show, never watched wrestling, and you pop in and see something. You get why it works and why it's awesome. You don't know this guy, but he's walking in with an eye patch and the crowd's going crazy. Like, you're going to be down with that. And he better be wrestling with that eye patch for a while, because that I think is amazing. I mean, that's like him chugging a beer level of Hangman Page. So yeah, I loved it. I thought the show was really good. I thought last week was really good. I thought the 2 weeks before were some of the more dull shows they've ever done, but the last 2 weeks it feels like we usually see with the product, when there's a lot of criticism from a in-ring standpoint and a excitement standpoint, it levels up, and then we'll bump up ratings, and then we'll have some bad shows. It's kind of the same arc with that stuff. So I think it's been strong. I didn't even mind Karen Jarrett, because I think she's going to eat a guitar at the pay-per-view. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yes, that's a good bet. I think that's a good bet. It's really well said. And I think that's important. Like, if you were like, not that people really like flip through the channels anymore, but if you were, and you were flipping through the channels and you saw that segment at the end of the show, like, you'd be attracted to that. Like, it's hard not to be. Like, even if you're not a wrestling fan, you could watch that and go, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, that's pretty cool. Eye patch guy, I like that guy. Eye patch guy's cool. And I think that's important. Like, you didn't need to know anything. And so that's a good, I think that's a good match that they have boiling at the right time for Double or Nothing. We'll do a full Double or Nothing preview next week here on the Fireside Chat. We got a lot to preview next week. We've got Night of Champions, we've got Double or Nothing, but we'll do that then. What did you think, like, the development of this Four Pillars storyline, though? Have they been able to change your opinion on that, like, throughout the last couple weeks from where it was?
No, I mean I'm kind of the same. My overall feeling on this is that I wish it would have just been MJF and Darby, and that Sammy and Jack Perry were part of it. I mean, you can even see this week in the booking, like Darby gets the primo spot to tag with Orange Cassidy and gets the rub of Sting, of Orange Cassidy, guys who are super over but are not seen at his level, so he can absorb their rub. And it's I mean, it's very smart booking on that aspect. And then Sammy gets the Wardlow spot where he just like hits one move,
which is so bizarre.
Weird babyface turn, which is not working for him. And then Jack Perry gets absolutely murdered by Roosh, as I thought he would, but man, that was some brutal stuff.
Dude, Roosh has looked like I'm not like a big Roosh fan, like I think he's pretty. I think he could have good matches, but I think he always came across as kind of one note to me, and also like occupying a spot. And you could probably speak to this more than I could, being the Ring of Honor guy for so many years. Like he occupied that top spot, but I don't know. He just never felt like a top guy to me. But man, dude, that guy, when he goes out there and when he had that match with Jungle Boy he was all over him, and it looked really great, and he did the job. Like, it's valuable to have a heel like that on your roster. If he can keep that up, I think he might attract some attention. But I've been impressed with him the last couple times out.
Yeah, I mean, he carries himself like he's the top guy wherever he is, from lots of ways, backstage and on screen. But it's this point, like, can you imagine this guy in like a Bloodsport show?
Oh God,
look like, or like him and John Moxley going at it.
Yes,
like there's lots of good potential there, and that's like you occasionally want to give him a win, but he's also very formulaic, as most wrestlers are. But there's some things like when you get a big neon rope and choke someone out every single match. He did that in Ring of Honor. He's done that everywhere. It's just like, okay, I know we're doing this, but yeah, I mean that kind of guy is good to have on the roster to know, like, as a gatekeeper that's going to obliterate you, and you come out the other side, and now you're like, okay, well, Jungle Boy can literally lay it on his head off the apron and not break his neck, which is great. But, it is what it is. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I just think that he is in the spot there. I wouldn't sign him if I was in the company just because of the stuff back there. But yeah, he's good for what he's doing right now. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Mashup Dad. We'll try to fix that for you.
My laptop is overheating. That's why I moved it.
Oh, Tyler's laptop's gonna explode. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just disappeared. That's what's going on. So.
I don't hear it. So I'm glad you spoke up, Dad, because I wouldn't have been able to. I don't hear anything. So good stuff. Speaking of guys who are really like kind of shining, you mentioned him, Orange Cassidy. Like, I think you may be looking at like a guy who is accumulating a lot of momentum that at some point it might be like an unstoppable wave that you may not be able to dodge. Like he keeps getting some of the loudest reactions on the show. He's having some of the best matches on the show. There's no, like, outside of like the gimmick itself, like there's not, it's like he's playing a character on a television show that's on weekly. He seems to get like the national presentation. Like, you think he has like that kind of like flow. When you look at his entrance, the lights go out, it comes up, he's got the backpack, he's kind of playing along with the music. Like, he's kind of like just clicking on all cylinders right now. And I always made the argument early on in his run that like you could make that guy world champion, but I feel that way even more now. You give him another year of a run like this, like he's getting over, and it's not just because of like the weird, unique silliness, which is what it was, I think, early on. It's more than that now. It's deeper than that now, and I think he's really figuring it out on a national scale.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he feels like AEW's Sami Zayn, but you think AEW would pull the trigger on
right
that like swell of love for a guy where, just like with Sammy and Kevin to the same extent, like a lot of people who knew about them when they came in before they even wrestled 1 second in WWE have had like a baseline of hardcore support, and that's never left, but it's slowly built up over time. Kevin Owens is like a more shot up first with the Cena feud. and then all the stuff with
Yep.
Sheriff, obviously, and then it kind of dipped. But Sammy's been a steady climber of I don't know. I mean, just like the opposite. It seemed to be the opposite of CM Punk in every way, probably so. But is there anyone who's doesn't want the best for Sammy that watches wrestling even a little bit, right? So that sort of swell of support for Orange Cassidy feels viable, and Tony Khan seems like a guy who would do that. Let's hope. Let's just hope there's not 2 world titles in AEW.
Oh God.
So sorry to even put that out there, but but if that's the case, then he's a lock. But I would like there to remain 1, and even then, I think the possibility is there because if you look at the full roster, how many people that are not former champions, right? You got that you think could win the world title for the first time. To me, it's Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy at this point.
Yeah. Yep.
Haven't won it. I mean, maybe Danielson, just if he feels like it. But beyond that, it seems like retreads, which is fine. The company's been around for a long time. To have a 2-time champion makes sense at some point. But it's those 2. And I don't know anyone else that would even fit into the picture at this point that I'd be even considering in a real way. Not tomorrow, but Orange Cassidy, if Cole wins and then a heel beats Cole, Cassidy feels ready to be that next face that wins it. So.
I totally agree. I mean, that's a really good point about the titles that are the kind of the title picture. I don't know that it's a positive for them. I mean, I think Tony Khan would probably say it would enter Wardlow into evidence, but I don't know that I would agree. So yeah, you're right. God, those 2 names
below that's a show idea because I definitely don't. I think there's world titles, and I think there's tiers of world titles. To me, there's 3 actual there's 2 top tier North American company world titles, obviously. Well, now about to be 3, but Impact, ROH to me are lesser world titles, but that's a whole nother debate for another day.
Dude, ROH, yeah, I don't know if we want to debate that. Have you seen any of that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, then never mind. Never mind.
I could guess, but yeah, I knew that was not going to be for me the moment. Really, he bought it. But yeah,
it's really not good. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on AEW? We spent a good chunk. I want to hit a couple WWE topics, but
I don't think so. A lot going on next weekend, but
yeah.
Then it's Forbidden Door time, and I'm not looking forward to that sort of Pocky universe. It's going to be a retread of a lot of stuff we talked about last year. I hope there is some elevation there. Also, you'll have the Owen tournament happening around the same time, I think. So
I am
not creatively not looking forward to it. Yeah.
I'm so surprised that they didn't learn anything. Or I guess I'm not so surprised, but it's just. I guess it's more of how could you not have learned anything from last year? I mean, these guys who are going to be in the Forbidden Door matches, in a week like this where you have a New Japan show in the United States this weekend, or no, is it? Yeah, it's this weekend. You got to start planting seeds for those feuds now if you're gonna do that, or else you're gonna have the same problem. And I think that, they're gonna run into that for sure. All right, a couple WWE topics. We had Roman Reigns back in the fold last week. He's going to be on SmackDown tonight. He is kind of going over the heads of the Usos as the head of the table and is going to take on Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for the tag titles at Night of Champions. I'm curious just where you're at on Roman and thumbs up or thumbs down on this type of storyline progression for the bloodline.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's smart booking overall to really put the shine on AJ and Rollins for the title final between them. I don't know if that'll main event. I don't know if that's been reported.
It better. It has to.
Yeah, I mean, it's WWE. Like I said, CM Punk on the CM Punk. He was champion for a year and never made.
True. I mean, that's true.
So,
that's. Oof. Yeah.
So if that's another sign of Triple H versus Vince on that stuff, but we'll see that power struggle that goes on forever. But yeah, I like it for that reason. I also like it for the continued involving Sammy specifically in Roman still getting one here sets it up. If there are 2 titles, to Sammy take the title off him at SummerSlam or whatever, right? There's lots of options that I think can still pay off from that story, and I also think Roman and Solo are winning. So we'll see what happens tonight. That builds us to our show next week. But them defeating Sammy and Kevin continues that story between the two teams, and that also just makes all the belts on the bloodline, gives them something against the Usos. Can have the Usos turn. Maybe you get like a weird triple threat, but ideally you get Usos versus Roman and Solo, and that's the official breakup between those teams. Like, it's like everything. And when WrestleMania happened, and what Roman said, they were like in the third inning or something of this bloodline story, or like not even halftime. Maybe it was Heyman that said it. I can't remember. But like, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you're saying that because you never want to say, hey, the story's over. Thanks for coming, everybody, because it's wrestling, right? It's never over. But like, it feels like it actually is planned out to go on through next WrestleMania, and that's like a huge match. Like Usos versus Roman and Solo feels like, is that the biggest match WWE can put on with current roster members at this time? Like, the way the stories are being constructed, obviously Roman losing versus somebody is bigger, Cody getting him or Sammy getting him, but like, yeah, I like the way it works, and the Roman as the belt collector is the better version of what Kenny was trying to do, I think, 2 years ago. And yeah, I've liked the story a lot, and it's worked. SmackDown especially has needed Roman with Gunther not being there. I think he was holding a large portion of that show down, that it needs to fill it up. So yeah, I've liked it a lot. But what's your thoughts?
I really like it too. I mean, I really, really like it. I had concerns coming out of WrestleMania because I'm like, man, the story, I think it would, like, looking back, I was going into it thinking it'd be fun to watch the story of like beltless Roman and beltless Usos like try to coexist, and Roman try to stay the tribal chief without that title. And so when that didn't happen, and we leave, they leave WrestleMania, and it's kind of like, well, Roman's still in his top spot and they're not. Like, it's going to be, that's kind of like a very simplistic story. This has gotten, I think, like, complicated and with enough kind of tentacles to it where it makes you think, but it's also a really logical place to go. Like, Usos lose in the at WrestleMania. Roman's upset about that. Pretty, like, the abusive partner is back, to kind of terrorize the two guys. And Zach, I know you're over it, but it's good storytelling. I mean, it's good logical storytelling to me that Roman would say, you know what, you guys can't do it, Solo and I can, and we will. And then they do. Like, and you got, the rich get richer. I think that's a good story. And I think you can have, as this thing goes on, if it's going to end at next year's WrestleMania, whether it's Cody or somebody else, it's like, you've told this story about like the bloodline falling apart, and therefore Roman Reigns, like his kind of grip on SmackDown and on the WWE and on that title falling apart too. So I think it's just been a heck of a pivot. And I don't know when they do, Usos against Roman and Solo Sikoa, but that's a huge match. I mean, that's a really, as you mentioned, like, that's a really big match. And so I think they just got it lined up really well, and Roman continues to dominate, and a reason to watch SmackDown. Like, when he's on, it's like you can't miss. Like, you don't want to miss that stuff. And so I've really liked what they've done here for sure.
Yeah, and this is an easily arguable the other side. So I understand that as I'm about to bring up this point. But if you're going to have a limited roster like WWE has, and you're going to have someone have the belt for whatever 1,200 days, 4 years or so, if it goes to next WrestleMania, then this is smart. If you take that and hey, you have this equation, you have to solve this problem, like what I just gave you, to like have Roman do the story, and you've gone through everybody. Like, it's better than doing him and Kevin Owens for the third time, or him and whatever, right? Him and Ricochet for some reason, or whatever, right? Him and Braun Strowman have a random match that is like, hey, we got to defend the title. Like, is that the healthiest thing for that belt? Do whoever gets that, do I want them to operate the same way? No, but I think it works It's been where it's registered in our brain that he is a heel. He sucks. He never wants to defend that thing. That works for his character, what he's doing. MJF is trying to do a similar thing, and it works for him, what he's doing. If he could weasel his way into a tag match at this pay-per-view, he certainly would. And would he still get the same crap that Roman gets for not defending? I think so. But it's a different scenario. And there's 15 people you can put against MJF, and you can be like, well, okay, if Jack Perry is getting a title match against him, then he's, to me, this is not trying to be super shade, but he's like the Ricochet of AEW. So and they've made that work. So, but Ricochet's probably a better worker. But as I get my strays on but yeah, so if you don't, instead of retreading a bunch of people, you have him tell this story that works really well, and he doesn't have to defend the title and not burn more. If he's got 2 or 3 more singles matches in a year, like, you got to do something here, and this is a good way to do it if you have that set up.
Yeah. Well, it's also like, and again, this is more meta than actually stories, but from like just the business perspective, like, this allows you to establish that other world title too. If he's going to be in tag matches on this pay-per-view, and I don't know what he'll do at Money in the Bank if he's on that show, or if it's just this show and then it's not, we don't see him again until SummerSlam. Like, you have a good chunk of time to really establish that other world title. And frankly, like, it needs it. They don't have any other way to establish that thing. And I think it's already going to be like a secondary title to Roman's. We know that. They have to know that too. But you're going to put your best foot forward to try to make it something that it's not. And Roman as Universal Champion off kind of doing more like storyline based stuff with the Usos and the Bloodline, it won't fix the problem. It's not going to make the new world title, more than the Universal title. I'm not saying that, but it will just allow the WWE to breathe with that other world title at the top of kind of the food chain. And I think, it's like kind of grading on a curve, I suppose, but it's a reality. Like, it will allow for that. It's another positive to what's going on over there.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Cody Rhodes, we'll finish with him. I thought he had a really nice promo on Monday night against opposite Brock Lesnar. The guy keeps getting cheered. He keeps getting close to that line where I'm like, oh, is he going too far? And he doesn't. I think that speaks to like his talent, but also the WWE system that's kind of keeping him in check. And that's the purpose for it. That's why it's there. So that's a good thing. I bring him up simply to discuss that. I mean, how do you think he's doing? Are you happy with where he is right now?
Yeah, I mean, within that system, I think he's working well. I mean, when he left for WWE, it felt like a perfect fit for both parties, for him and for WWE to feel that. I mean, to me, he feels, not to jump too much ahead, he feels like the number one with a bullet to win the Money in the Bank and tell that story of him cashing in when he wants to. And is that another opportunity at WrestleMania? He's going to, I don't really, it's hard because baby faces have to be honorable and tell you when they're cashing in. And heels are going to be scummy about it. So that's kind of the farce of it all. But, if those get switched from time to time, I think that helps. But that's how it feels. I mean, yeah. I think he's working. Is it at any point, am I like, okay, this is going to be a problem in 6 months for the general audience? No, I haven't thought that yet. Like you're talking about, same sort of thing of like, hey, is he 100% my cup of tea as a wrestling consumer? No, but he's like a 78% cup of tea for me. And I think that works, that he kind of fits that. He's like the politician that's like for nobody, but kind of wins because he is for nobody, right? He's not anyone's favorite, but he like works like, oh yeah, Cody's totally fine. And that works in WWE way more than AEW, where Orange Cassidy works better in the AEW system than, if he was in WWE, he'd be losing to, Bobby Lashley. Yeah. He'd be Chad Gable. He'd be Otis, someone like that, right? So it fits. It's what I thought he would be. Him winning Money in the Bank tells a story, and I'm interested to see where that if that does happen. where that goes. And when he decides to cash it in, does he do it at MSG to kind of finish that story about Dusty? I think that'd be intriguing. Or if you have an MSG show set up and it's booked around him cashing in, you
cool.
call it the cash-in event or something, and it's on Peacock, or I don't know, whatever. There's lots of cool things you could do. And is that against Roman or whatever? But I think there's lots of good stories to tell with him, and using Brock opposite of him, using people like that sets him up. Him and Gunther potentially, I think could be really fun, especially if he loses that title as like who's the top guy on this show that's not Seth or AJ, I guess. But, so I think there's lots of good stories to tell, and it feels like we are in a neutral first, second gear for him for quite a while now. But I think there's going to be interesting stories, and he's always going to at least be the second or third most interesting thing on whatever show he's a part of. So I think that's a positive for Cody.
Yeah, and I think it helps the show just in general to have like that top. And they have a couple top guys on Raw that are like that, Seth being one of them, that are getting like the reactions that they're supposed to get. The crowd's not giving them 50-50 stuff. I think it makes just a lot cleaner of a watch. Like I think back to those like 2016, 2017, 2018 like shows with Roman, and it's just like it just was so hard to like get into what they're doing because he was the top guy, babyface, getting booed, and it just didn't make any sense. I think it makes the show flow better. And so, yeah, I think to me that's good. I'm reading your comment here, Zach, while I try to, where the words fall out of my mouth of my previous point. I'm not sure I get what you mean here. Is that Ali? Is that what you're getting at?
I think so.
Comment back. Yeah. See, I was scrolling through the chat here to make sure that I didn't miss any topics or questions. I don't think I did. Dr. Ross wants to put the U.S. title on Roman. Just want to watch the
maybe
burn, Dr. Ross.
Probably better than Austin Theory at this point.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, all that positive Austin Theory stuff that I had from 3 months ago isn't looking so good. Right now. Not looking good.
Yeah. Are you selling or are you keeping that stock if you had Ali or not Ali, if you had Theory stock? I never bought any. I probably did during the Progress show that was on the network, but then I sold it pretty quickly after that.
I mean, it's so low right now that I'm probably just keeping it.
Or just buy more. You're just hoping for the best. You're hoping for it to pop. Yeah.
Lottery ticket. It's just a lottery ticket at this point. That's all it is. So yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it there, guys. Great talk. Appreciate everybody who chimed in and who jumped on with us live. Thank you very much to everybody who's going to watch us on demand. Thank you very much. We will be back next week with more stuff. I'm sure we'll have a lot to chat about. It's never a quiet week in the wrestling business these days.
And one thing, Stephanie Chase, I would say out of all three of us, me, you, and her, is more pro CM Punk, and that's not like a labeling thing, but I think I'd be interested in her take. So I'm sure her videos on the channel will go in kind of the opposite aspect of what Zach and I did today. If you want some two-sidedness on perspective on this, I think she'll be a good resource for everybody.
She is,
without seeing anything, but
she is, and even if she agrees with us, it's her content is really great, guys. Like give it a listen. It's right up there on the top of the channel. She puts together some great stuff, and she's got some great just great insights and great smart analysis on AEW in particular. So check it out if you haven't done so already. Again, tell a friend about the channel. We certainly appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notifications if you haven't. We'll continue to bring you live content all week long next week. Thank you guys so much. Tyler, a pleasure, my friend.
Yep. Thank you. It was fun. Good to be back.
It is. It very much is. We'll see you guys later.
Yep. See you.